is an aspirational outbreak of a magnitude none of us can imagine. That's because I think the population bulge, particularly in the subcontinent. If you take a look at India, we have a population bulge that's like 400, 500 million young people in the working age group of 18 to 40 who want to get ahead. The media has shown how others live. You cannot afford to have a K-shaped growth in a country, meaning only one angle gets all the wealth and the others don't have it. So inequalities will become a big issue. If you notice how Rahul Gandhi's fashed his entire campaign on the word nyaya, justice, social justice, economic justice, all kinds of justice, because I think people, and that's what we need to watch out for. Bangladesh happens because it starts as a student protest against jobs and preservation. In India, part of the reason why the government goes down, gets lesser numbers is because, as I said earlier, certain sections of people believe that they're going to lose out on that, and so unemployment has become a big issue. Sri Lanka, if you look, cost of living, all those big issues are there. So you have a very young population that is highly demanding. And you will continue to see this unrest go across if you get bad governance. Anyone who tries to think that they know better and move into an authoritarian phase, not hear the voices of the people, not record or take the feedback and change their way of functioning, will pay the price. Sooner or later, this is what happened in Sri Lanka. You cannot make overnight decisions anymore. You have to build. Mr. Modi realized it when he tried on the farm laws. He had pulled back as people went on the streets and said, there's no way you can impose a law of this kind, 3 laws, without taking the key stakeholders in mind. In Bangladesh, they tried to do that, and the consequences of that is not immediate just because of the quota, because there was a certain amount of authoritarianism that had grown. You had shoved the opposition down. You were not allowing free and fair elections. You were going to pay the price. So I think, given, as I said, the democratization of media, that democratization has impacted the young the most, as my friend was saying here. The digital world, I would not say that fully determines the election, but has a very powerful play in terms of dissemination of knowledge. Finally, who to vote, why to vote is a decision of mine. I might be influenced, may not be influenced by that particular media. But the fact is that so many people have now access to the kind of information only a few had earlier, means that we have to move towards delivery, performance. You will be judged under greater standards, and if you try to suppress, you could get away with it for a while, but you will have a violent reward. Sri Lanka was an example of that, where you could see the outbursts. You'll have seen that. We said Pakistan, another outburst, again inflation soaring over there, people unhappy with it. But yet Imran Khan is popular because they don't want a regime that will impose a leader on them. So I think that is the big movement that we all have to be aware of and report, as we said, right through the whole phase, is to keep our viewers, readers informed constantly with the best of knowledge. And that is, I think, a conscience that you have to have. That whatever you might say, print dead or digital alive or whatever it is, end of the day, it's the medium that is changing. The medium cannot become the message. Right? Insta is not the message. It is what the message and the platform that you're using might get you more viewers, and that becomes the key. It's the content, and that will always hold on this.
Thank you. Shehan, so microphone to Shehan, please. Shehan, your hand.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Raj. Well, after listening to all your insights and your experience, I have a little comment as well as a question for the entire panel as well as for you. Now we are talking about sharing experiences on election coverages. Well, thank God. Sri Lanka, I've been covering elections since 1999. Now we don't have a war to get injured by a bomb blast. Also, we don't have leaders who are pressurizing especially the private media channels to put out their news directors whenever they want, if their things are not being communicated properly, which has happened to me twice. Right? So I won't go in detail. But what I have seen, whatever, despite all the political lots and the terrorism or whatever, the society has changed, but has fundamentals have changed. I challenge the fundamentals are still there, especially as Mr. Raj very correctly said, you said that, checking, rechecking, double checking before a story is being broadcast. My former boss is here, Mrs. Sugishara Senadeva from MTV, NBC. He had been telling us checking, cross-checking, double-checking. That's your fundamentals, right? So we have been, based on that. But the technology has changed, yes. Well, correctly as you said, technology has changed into digital space. Mr. Raj, but we have seen in politics the two-party system is no longer. The multi-party systems are evolving. Now the problem is even within the same party, a lot of candidates are evolving. So there is some sort of, unconventional thing happening in the entire political machinery. In the entire world it is happening. But in Sri Lanka and especially in India, it has very peculiar things are happening. But I don't also to an extent agree that the digital space has also done enormous job, yes, but still in electronic conventional electronic media, you can't say that the reception is going down or the public is not watching, because let's say this election, one of the leading meat broadcasting companies charging 3 million for 10-second commercial. Previous election, it was 1.7 million for 10-second commercial. So the prices are also going up, right? But in 2015, we saw a president being brought up by digital space majority. Everybody will have to agree. So, Mr. Raj, what do you think should we do as journalists in Sri Lanka? At this age, at this time, what do you think the reasons for all this? It's a different equation. It's a mess up. How do you basically clean up this process?
Again, I would just say that look, our role is to make sense of what is happening. We don't try and influence in a large way. All these things happen spontaneously, might be motivated from outside or whatever it is. But our job is to try and bring clarity, perspective to whatever is happening. We are not saying we want to directly influence what is there. We may influence it indirectly because of the way we present our information and how we collect all our facts and put it together. But for journalists to be the prime movers, the changers, the political scene will evolve, fragment, and coalesce according to times that are there. And if a strong leader comes, who would have thought that in India the coalition era would have ended with consecutive majorities for the BJP? At one time we were highly fragmented, starting from the time that Rajiv Gandhi lost the elections. So that is a process that we try and evolve and try and understand, bring it very simply to the audience. You have a very young audience who may not even know the process of election. If you ask them what it is, if you talk about bond, if you talk that, there are a lot of complex issues which I always had a saying that the true genius is making the complex into the simple. That's our job. Genius is all about making very complex information, if you can't understand, into very simple points that the viewer, reader says, okay, I understood. And that person will get a lot more things. So ours is no interpretation. I know I can get into other issues, but I think time is a constraint. And there was another question. You said three questions.
I think we will end we'll have to put a stop to the question answer conversation this time. No, I thought we'd just keep it for Raj today. Yeah.
I'll be on public.
Yeah. I think there was a question from Imran as well. I said. Okay, yeah. Let's just get directly into one question and maybe final word for you.
I got Thank you, Mr. Raj. And, my name is Achinkya Bandar. I'm a senior lecturer at Crown University, and I'm going to rhetorics of media. And I was just fascinated about your talk, and it was so rhetorical, and it's somewhat, you know, I mean, if you just walk through the journey of those. I mean, I'm a big fan of India today. So if you walk through the pictorial story that you have, you know, walked us through, that was amazing. I'm just wondering, there's one, I mean, I have one question which has two parts in it, like very simply. So we were talking about like the challenges and, you know, challenges and basically confrontations of the journalists today in the wake of a presidential election, which will be in another less than a month of a time. So how would you see, because I spotted that that colleague was saying that there were some constraints from the politicians towards the media about, like, you know, for example, the democratization of the expression of your thoughts. But I think that has been quite okay now, because most of the media institution owners are contesting for the election, so I don't think that might be a big problem now. So I'm just wondering, as a person who is interested in this geopolitical region, India, and this regional factor, how would Indian media, because we know that there is a big say in changing of the public opinion of the Sri Lankan community by the Indian media. So as a person who represents Indian media, how would you see that India Today in particular, or in general Indian media, would shape up the public opinion and the public the idea about these, the priorities of the Sri Lankan presidential election in 2024?
You're being very specific in terms of the Sri Lankan, how India perceives Sri Lanka, and or how we shape our opinion about what Sri Lanka's Sri Lankan election. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, sir, I mean, if you look at this, the past, you know, the elections. So there was a critical influence on the vote, the Sri Lankan people, in terms of shaping the political ideology. There is a critical influence from the Indian media, you know.
I think, I mean, it's a broader question. I may not get the answer completely right, but India is at a stage where we want to actually engage our neighbors far more. We've talked of neighborhood first, but really not executed what we've spoken about. So whatever is happening in Sri Lanka is of great interest, because we see you know, an economic integration or interdependence that's very critical. We have, if you, my previous cover story saw, we looked at the trade in South Asia, and it's only 6% of our total trade in any of these countries, which is, I think, is a huge mistake, because the more we, you know, given our geographical thing, there's no point on us buying coffee from Brazil and trying to get it here, or Sri Lanka buying rice from somewhere else. You know, if you have it right across over here. So I think very important as we move forward is a lot of the previous irritants, or major, not I would call it irritants, but the major blocks that were there, in some senses have dissipated. There will be issues between nations, neighbors will, your own neighbor you will be fighting quite constantly with on some issue or the other. But I think the larger message is that the economic message is coming very strongly across. And today we have a whole generation, including my children and anybody who's young or what, wants actually economic change to happen. They want to understand what that, I keep emphasizing that thing. I went to Pakistan and spoke to a group of students, and they didn't ask me about India-Pakistan badly. They just asked, how did India become such a developing, you know, such an economic power that it was? What is the secret that India had? Right, we are 1.4 billion. So there is this class, we must understand that while politics is very important, the way we shape it has to be, you know, my editor-in-chief, Arun had a very good line, that beyond the poverty line, which we might all live, we have what is called the dignity line. Are we providing enough to our people? And that dignity line is key. Therefore, if you see Mr. Modi might have given a lot of welfare things. right? At the end of the day, people are saying, I don't want to be that much on welfare and the dole. I want a job. I want to be proud. We're all human beings. And that aspiration is as important as we talk of freedom of everything. That freedom of want is as critical as freedom of the press and everything else. So we need to move, I think, shape opinion without seemingly biased, because we've seen so much strife across societies. We have fought on communities, we have fought on tribes, we have fought on geographical territories. It hasn't got us anywhere across the world. But I think in some senses, the moment you begin to give this opportunity, that once you give people the freedom to earn their money, to see what they're doing, they probably become better human beings. And we are at a global crisis, I think, where climate change is a big impact. We cannot ignore it. I think Sri Lanka is making huge strides. The government is doing in terms of all of that has to come together. So I would just look at it a little more philosophically, less sort of hardcore hack. I could say, yeah, great, strife is great for journalism, it's good business, it makes my readers read more, but I think all of us need to shape that opinion, that Sri Lanka has great potential, that, in some senses, Sri Lanka also needs, there'll always be a big brother, right? You don't want that. That's fair enough. And it is for us, I think, to move to give more to the smaller neighbors, not in terms of importance, but in terms of size or population, and give them a whole lot more. And we take, and therefore that integration makes this area far more peaceful, will be tremendously prosperous. We saw Europe as an example. There is no reason why we can't do it, and ethnically and everything else, we are so connected. I can come here, I see women in saris, and I say, wow, it's so beautiful. There is no difference in culture. You go in Pakistan, it's there, Bangladesh, it's there, and you can see the food, everything. There is so much of geographical, unlike in Europe where everything is so different. So I think the time for South Asia has come. That's my view, and we need to work towards that. There will be imports, everything else. But I think journalists have to contribute substantially towards educating people that that's the way, and that creates the own aspirational thing, that we meet that aspiration. I think we need to meet the economic needs of people.
Sorry, Imran, I have to personally apologize to you. I think I took the question away from you and went there, but unfortunately, I think we'll have to say bye-bye to Raj, because I think he's got lunch. Somebody's making him lunch for him, so we'll have to say bye-bye to Raj. Can we maybe continue with the rest of the panel if anyone has questions for the rest of the panel?
I'm okay to continue, actually.
Yeah, so the rest of the panel, any questions, we can continue that conversation. Vote of thanks?
Needs to have a conversation.
Fine. Thank you so much, Raj, for your time. I think it's been a real pleasure to have you. And I think a lot of interesting conversations, and I'm sure a lot of food for thought for the journalists. Yeah? Thank you, Raj.
Thank you. Sorry, I got you.